Hello and welcome to Randi Sands and the Mediumship crew. It's an honor and a privilege to have all of you joining us tonight. And for those of you that don't know, we do have a spiritual channel on YouTube, and it's under Randi Sands. We encourage you to subscribe, and that way you'll be notified of, any future content that we have, because we're constantly having new content. And tonight we have an in-depth review on the spiritual pioneer Morris Pratt. And we have that because of our good friend, as Jack calls her, SSK, which is Stacy Schuerman Kopchinski.
Kopchinski.
I
learned how to say it.
I had to break it down for her. Kopchinski.
It helps if I look at it too. I don't say Chopskinski.
We'll have a quiz at the end of the session.
Don't ask me to spell it.
How to say it.
I can say it, but don't ask me to spell it.
And for those that are interested, we will be having an amazing week next week, where we will be doing an in-depth review on the Blue Island. And it's a fascinating book. It's written by a man that was a famous author, and he died on the Titanic. And it's all about where we go, what we do, and what we can expect when we cross over to the other side. And if y'all are wondering how anybody would know that, well, then I guess you're just going to have to come in next week. And if you decide that you would like to read the book, because it's not a requirement, you can come in whether you read it or not. But if you decide you want to, if the author is William T. Steed, you have the right book. It's a short book. It's 74, 75 pages. And I will tell you that even people that aren't into spiritualism that I've had read it were mesmerized. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of great conversation. And, we hope that you join us. And for tonight, as we said, we're going to be talking about Morris Pratt. And before we open the floor to Stacy, I'm just going to give you guys a brief little snippet on him. He's a man that was fascinated with the spiritual. He made an investment in a company that later became known as the Ashland Mine of, I have to look at my notes here so I don't forget, of Ironwood, Michigan. And he always said that if he became rich, he would give part of that to spiritualism. Within a few months' time, he made over $200,000, and he fulfilled his promise. He fulfilled his promise. So, Stacy, would you like to take over, baby?
Love to. I know, and I'm a huge fan of Morris Pratt. He was born actually in New York. That's where his family originated from, that hot box area that we always talk about, that western part of New York. And he eventually moved to the state of Wisconsin, which is where I live, so we can cross Wisconsin off the list of the 50 states of mediums in history. So, and
Make a map.
yeah, well, Wisconsin's like your hand. They always say that, and so it's like I'm over here, and Morris Pratt moved to like right down here, so the southern part of the state. It was a farm country. A farm county, actually. It was surrounded by farm counties. It was a little bit it was in the lower part of Dane County, close to Dane County, so but still rural, just a rural area. And he moved here with his brothers, and he actually was kind of successful in farming first. They bought so much land that they were able to lease land out to other farmers and make part of the profit. So he was a very good businessman in general, but he started to become fascinated with the phenomena of spiritualism as he started attending seances. And it was actually through his mom. His mom was like, "Hey, come and check what I'm doing Friday night. Why don't you come with me?" And if you think about that time, you're talking about what, 1880s, so spiritualism was on fire, right? Like it was getting close to, 1893 was when the NSAC started, the NSA started. There was another organization that started about 7 years before that. So you're talking like the hot box of spiritualism, just the wild fire of spiritualism. So can you imagine all these homes on like Friday and Saturday nights? The parlors are a rockin', with spirit seances and just spirit energy and mediums working everywhere. And he actually went and saw the name of the, oh, go ahead, Randy.
And the tables were a tippin'.
The tables were a tippin'. I like that a lot. Great visual now. I just see this Victorian parlor with a table and all these people sitting around it. I love it. Love it, love it. Well, Mary Hayes was the name of the medium that they went to see, and he started going to see her pretty regularly. She had regular seances. I call her Medium Mary because she has a married name I can't say. It's kind of like Jack not being able to say Kopchinski. This is like, I just call her Medium Mary Hayes. And it was in that seance that Spirit had brought the financial advice, the financial endeavors to go ahead and invest in land up in the northern part of Wisconsin, and then the northern UP section of the upper Michigan. And just like Randy said, he invested along with Mary's sons. There was a few of them that actually invested, and overnight became pretty much millionaires. $200,000 in 1886 was buku bucks
now.
Yeah, buku bucks. And he even said, even prior to this investment, that if it paid off, he would dedicate a portion of his money to the phenomena of spiritualism to prove the continuity. He not only enjoyed the mediumship aspect of it, but he enjoyed the philosophy and the science that came with it too. Do you know the Sir William Crookes, and he was, investigating mediums. They were doing things with mediums to scientifically prove the afterlife. Plus there was this huge spiritualist movement, with all the philosophy of, okay, so if we are continual, then what, and he embraced all of it wholeheartedly. It's interesting. I kind of think his personality, it was a little bit of spitfireness back in the day. We'll talk a little bit about that as we continue on in the history. So he gets this money, and the building that you see pictured behind me is the original Morris Pratt Institute. It was built in Whitewater. That's where he was from. That's where he had his. And it's pretty cool. If you can look, there's dormitories in there. And then there's obviously a huge lecture hall. I think it was like the second floor was nothing but like a big lecture hall. And then the downstairs was dedicated to classrooms, and then the third floor was the dormitory. So originally it wasn't called Morris Pratt Institute. It was actually called, let me just pull up my little notes here. It was the Temple of Science, or the Pratt Temple, or known in Whitewater as Spook's Temple, because I guess everything with spirit, you have to put a name Spook in front of it. So I don't know. So, and it wasn't a very warm, welcoming to the Morris Pratt Temple, or the Temple of Science in Whitewater. It didn't get embraced very easily by the people who lived there. But Morris Pratt didn't care. He was a rebel without a cause. I love it. Well, no, a rebel with a big cause, actually, I should say. He definitely had a cause. So he then in turn turned around and built, like I said, and invited just dozens of people to come. I mean, we're really kind of lucky. In most states, we're lucky if you really start to dig into your state's history of spiritualism. But like he had Peebles, who is known as the missionary of spiritualism. Peebles was there and spoke. You know, we had Victoria Woodhull come and speak. Like there was just a big, I mean, some of the greatest pioneers were, yeah, Randi.
Now, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong. When he built this, he went to the NSA, which I'm assuming is, and I shouldn't do that because you know what happens when you do that, but I believe that's now NSAC, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. They added the C to it. And he had asked them to basically take charge of it.
Not yet, but yes. In 1902 he did, but not originally. So the building was started being built in 1888 and it was dedicated in 1889. So for those few years, he it wasn't quite a school yet. It was basically, he built this as like a lecture hall. And so he would have seances in the evenings. He'd invite mediums from all over the world and have lectures in the hall, knowing eventually he wanted to turn it into an educational institute. But for those first few years, he basically, in what was hysterical, I'll tell you, I just have to tell you about Morris Pratt because this is what I find so fun. If you can find or go online to newspapers.com, the old Whitewater journals, he would put like, attention, prove that Jesus was born December 25th. Meet me at my lecture hall for debate, you know, and he would like put these just like basically call to actions in the paper to any religious leaders that would like to get together and discuss the philosophy or their truth of religion. He was known to get into a few little bit of ruckuses, cause a little ruckuses, get a little what probably is now considered restraining orders against him in certain, in certain ways. I mean, he really was just fantastic he always pushed to get people to see outside of their comfort zone. He was always pushing to challenge the norm of that time or that thought process. Another one that they had was Colby Luther. She was another amazing, Amelia Colby Luther, amazing medium from Indiana. She was another one who came up and spoke at the Institute. But anyways, if you can get your hands on it, it's fantastic. Read some of I have an article here. It is just a notice and an invitation. If I'll just read it, it's hysterical. Having had a residence in Rock and Walworth County for over 49 years, and most of that time being spent in cultivating the soil for the purpose of raising vegetables and animals, but now in my old age, desire of having something to do, I have turned my attention to the cultivation of the human mind. And to make a success, I feel I must have the cooperation of the citizens of Whitewater and its vicinity, and that they may understand more fully my plan and purpose. I invite both young and old, the presidents and the professors of our school, the clergy, the lawyers, the doctors and businessmen to meet at the Temple of Science in the lower hall, January 7th from 7 to 9 for social and intellectual feast. And if they see lay fit, a plan for the future to build up and maintain a higher state of civilization. Morris Pratt. So this was like, it was always him. And then, the next article is the truth. It's saying, prove to me that Jesus was born on the 25th.
Well, you can't.
It was great. He signs it. So, so like, here I am, Morris Pratt. This is who I am. This is who I am. And this is what I do. So now I almost kind of wonder, there's no proof of this. But if you look at the timeline, I wonder if Morris Pratt knew he was going to transition or graduate, like Randi likes to say, to the spirit realm, because it was in October of 1902 that he signed over the Morris Pratt or the Temple of Science to the NSAC, well, NSA at the time. And the original charter still hangs in the office, and his name is not anywhere on it. It is all, it's these people that Clara Stewart, Moses Hall, AJ Weaver, people who kind of took over the Institute, because in December of 1902, he transitioned.
Somewhere I thought I read that he offered it to the NSA and they turned it down because they had only been in existence for 8 years.
Well, see, not that and you could have, because I'm still researching and digging out a lot about the history of this building and the people who ran it. I know that the NSA did not originally, they chartered the Institute, but they didn't necessarily use the Institute's education for their credentialing process for a while, because they had a credentialing process and lessons that eventually got turned over to the Morris Pratt Institute.
Yeah, what I was reading, and that doesn't mean it's correct, because there's a lot of different stuff out there. What I was reading said that he had offered it to them. They turned it down because they were only 8 years old. And then he put together a group of 9, and 2 of them were members of NSA. And they took it forward. If that's correct, I don't know.
Well, and I think that is correct, because if you look at the group of 9, those are the 9 signatures that are on the original charter. And eventually there was blending of the NSA and Morris Pratt when it came to the board members. Do you know, that became educators and stuff like that. So, so it was in 1902 that it became, it was a way for him, I think, that's my opinion. I think that he was protecting, his legacy, if you would. And so then in 1902, Moses Hall was the one who kind of took it under his wing as the principal and president, and turned it into the educational center that Morris Pratt really wanted. And what they decided to do with it is they offered 2 types of education. They were an accredited school where you could get your GED. So you could just do basic, high school education. That was one aspect. And then the other aspect was the phenomena of spiritualism. And that was taught by Maddie Hall originally. I mean, they had different teachers come in and go, and they did have different mediums travel in and teach classes and that kind of stuff. So you could either take part 1, which was general education, public speaking, sociology, arithmetic, English, and then you could take part 2. And I should have brought it with me, but I don't have it. I actually work at Morris Pratt Institute currently, so I have obviously a pretty big fascination with Morris Pratt, but I actually have catalogs that they were sent out to students, and it was like $2 a week or a month for laundry. Just, it was great. And they had students come to take just basic courses and spiritual courses. And you went and you stayed there. You stayed at the premise of the building, and it functioned up until the Depression as an educational center for both general education and spiritualist education. And then it was kind of in that Depression time, right? It was that, in the 30s, they weren't getting the enrollment that they needed to pay the professor. I mean, there wasn't a ton of professors. It's not like a college today where you go and you have all these choices. You know, it was like a principal and maybe 2 or 3 educators that taught everything, you know. It wasn't a ton of overhead when it came to, you know, different teachers, but there was the overhead of running the school. You know, you had the matron who had to take care of the dormitories and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening, sadly to say, like with the building behind me, we ended up losing it to Whitewater for back taxes. And somehow interesting enough, the building is not there. Look at, in all of its beautiful glory, they tore it down. And they tore it down, I think it was in the mid 40s or the mid 50s, they tore it down. And believe it or not, on that street corner, they built a telephone company. So the joke in Whitewater is it's always been a form of communication.
Dial up.
Dial up
Spiritual
spirit.
dial up.
Spirit. Yeah, so now it's been fun for me to kind of retrace some history, if you would, to kind of figure out what happened to MPI, because there was a transition time. Do you know, there was that time. So we lost, you know, the building got lost and then demolished, and then they raised funds to build the current building that we are in now. And that was built in 1951. So
do we know why they demolished it? I mean, because that was not an old building. That was a relatively young building.
You know, and I don't really know why. I heard that it was hard. So interesting enough, I came across some letters just recently in one of an old filing cabinet in MPI's basement. And I was reading them, and this woman named Hattie, not to be confused with Maddie, but Hattie, she was from Milwaukee, and she would travel to the Institute like in 1915.
Mm-hmm.
And she was checking on the condition of the school, and she said that they were having some structural problems. So I don't know if maybe it just wasn't built. I mean, look at it, it's huge. It's a monstrosity. I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't built well.
That's what I wonder, you know. And then for the fact of the lack of enrollment and the lack of upkeep on the building, that maybe it just got to be too much. And then, you know, nobody, again, very rural area. I mean, I don't want to say it's really rural. I mean, Whitewater has a college in it. I mean, but it's not New York City. It's not Chicago. It's not, you know, it's like, you know, Rochester, New York. I'm trying to think of like comparisons. It's not Miami. It's not Orlando. It's more like Sanford, you know, or something outside. So I don't know who would buy that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it just sat on the market for so long and no one took care of it. It just got to be too much overhead. But a little bit about what it was like behind me when it was up and functioning. So exactly, Moses Hall, who is also known as a reverend, he really put the program together. And Sunday they held religious services, you know, spiritualist church services. AJ Weaver, he was the main instructor of the school at that time and did most of all the like theology, comparative religion, that kind of coursework. Like I said, Maddie Hall, Moses's wife, she did all the psychic phenomenon. And then Mrs. Yankee, she was the oratory. So she did all the speaking, the public speaking. So that's really kind of what it was. And they always opened up their rooms to the public. They always opened up like their discussions, lectures, services, seances to the public to try to educate the public more in the phenomena of spiritualism too. So moving along to our current building, I'm just checking my notes here. Yeah, we moved to, so here's the thing. It closed for good 1939. That's when Morris Pratt in Whitewater closed. This is the mystery. So I hope that if anybody out there has any information tucked into their basement that they want to share, Please get a hold of us. So I don't know what happened to MPI between like 1939, really was I think the last class, and like 1951. I mean, it seems like what happened is they kind of went to regroup. Like I said, the NSAC, well, it was still the NSA at that time. We didn't become NSAC until like 51. They had their own Bureau of Education. So they were teaching their style. And MPI, again, very similar styles here, folks, not anything like way different or obscure. Very same styles. But so then I don't know, like, I'm intrigued, you know, to find out. It sounds like it went into somebody's private home from like the Milwaukee area, possibly. And there was...
That's why you asked for a basement.
Yes. Yeah, because I just feel like somewhere is this information. Because interesting enough, Thomas Grimshaw, I know I'm throwing a lot of names out there, but Thomas Grimshaw came up with a correspondence course for MPI, like a written, you know, 20 lesson course on the phenomena of spiritualism. And so that became what I think to be the first correspondence course that MPI started offering. I think basically what they did was they got together and they regrouped and they said, all right, what are we going to do? Where are we going to build? We need to be in a big city. So Milwaukee was the chosen city. And then they raised the funds, bought the land, and built the current building that we're now in. And I think that throughout that first 10 years is where we kind of started to really function or look to being a correspondence course, because the building that we're in isn't as big as this building that Mr. Pratt built in Whitewater, but it has, you know, it has libraries, it has a small dormitory for like a professor educator to stay at, it's got a lecture room. So I feel like that's when they started doing and focusing on the correspondence course. And then in 1961, so again, history at its finest, there was Victoria Barnes, who I will talk, she was from Chicago, so when we get to the state of Illinois, we can discuss her. But she was the director of education for the NSAC, because now it's past 54, so we've added on the churches into the back of our names. And she had a course, an advanced course with like 30 to 40, I think it was 40 lessons or something like that. 40 or 50 lessons of spiritualism. And when she transitioned or graduated to the spirit world, NSAC then said, you know what, we're just going to let MPI kind of be the educational college, the America's spiritual, because really Morris Pratt Institute was the first ever and only that I know of spiritualist college in America. You know, I know there's educational centers, but Morris Pratt, I think, was the very first, you know, like spiritualist college that, you know, taught in this type of form and set. And now we have a 30 lesson correspondence course that we offer to anybody. I have people from all over the world taking the course. I have, there are people from different religious organizations taking the course to understand what spiritualism is. Of course, I will promote the course. I always promote the course, because no matter where you are in your spiritual development or your understanding of spiritualism and the phenomena of mediumship, it's really good to know how it all developed and how it all formed and why it is the way it is today. And I think that 30 lesson course really kind of breaks down the history of spiritualism, which is so important because, well, that's me. You know, I just love the pioneers. Wait, I have a picture of Morris Pratt. Let me see if I can. I might have to take my thing down. Let's see, like, if we can. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's Peebles. That's a lie. Don't look at that one. he'll be one that we talk on another day. But you'll see why. Let me see if I can get back of my. Let's see. You'll see why they look so familiar. But see, so here, wait a minute. How do you do this? You know,
You may have to take the background down.
There you go. Put it in front of your.
Yeah.
Go.
There it is. Morris Pratt. There he is, the man, the legend. So now you can see why.
And there's plenty of pictures of him online too.
There's a ton of pictures of him online. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and now we have this 30 lesson course that is, what I think gives you the basic, a really good, solid foundation of what spiritualism is, how it formed, why it's a science, a philosophy, and a religion, and how to incorporate it into your life. Quite fascinating, anyways.
Yes, it is.
To me, the crazy man of Morris Pratt. I love him. Really, I can't suggest enough to try to see some of the articles that he wrote in newspapers. But, it's also so important to educate. Education has to be part of your mediumship development at all, in so many different ways, not just the how to give a message. There's so much more in the mediumship. And that's what Morris Pratt really wanted, people to learn. They wanted people to learn natural and spiritual laws. They wanted people to learn, public speaking and how that all plays in with the phenomena of spiritualism. They wanted people to learn physics, and get a little bit about the science background behind them. So that, when somebody said, that medium's just making it up, they can say, oh, wait a minute, there's this big science, this big, active thing behind that medium, this active energy of all forms of different education that play into it.
And a medium can't just make up stuff that they couldn't possibly know. Yes, Tammy.
Was he married and have children?
He did. Yeah, he was married. The other cool thing about him, yeah, he did have a daughter, I know for sure. And his daughter, actually, after her dad's passing, was an instructor at the Institute for a while. At his plot, it's him. He has a family plot in Whitewater, and I'll tell you, I know I'm really something. I just love history so much that I actually go to people's. I know they're not there anymore, right? It's just the body, but it's to me, it's like a history book. Walking a cemetery is like a history book to me. So his family plot is still in Whitewater. And we went to it, and it had gotten a little beat up because, well, it's old. So it was amazing. It was like almost overnight. We raised enough funds to get it completely redone and cleaned and all of the headstones leveled. And in his family plot is him and his wife and his daughter and her husband. But his headstone, particularly his headstone, which I have never seen so far, but I've only been to maybe a dozen or so Pioneers headstones, actually says scientific spiritualist right on the headstone.
Very cool.
That's what I love about the man is for most people that are spiritualists or mediums, it's the biggest obstacle to overcome, in my opinion, is confidence. And this man put himself out there, and not only did he put himself out there, he did it unapologetically. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And the thing is honestly, he never, at least that I'm aware of, he never really was a practice medium. He supported the mediums that were doing their work, and he he was really their voice, like their strong. Again, think of the times, right? The women didn't have a lot of rights at that time. You know, we were struggling to even try to keep, you know, try to be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And he just welcomed them in by droves. And you're right, Randy. I think it's because, you know, this is interesting too. Just like anything that we learn, the more we start to learn about it, the more we really dig in and get to understand, you know, not just the surface of mediumship, but the deep roots of mediumship and what it does. You become more affirm in your belief of this continual life, and more affirm of this way of living, this lifestyle that, yeah, like he unapologetically sat in his truth and just said, you know what, here I am. And I think that's all what we need. So sometimes I wonder, it's like the more, at least for me, I don't know about you guys, in your, you know, you guys can definitely share your opinion, but for me, the more I get to know about these pioneers and their history and who they were as people, you know, the more I start to feel comfortable in my own skin, you know, and be like, you know what? Yeah, no, I'm standing here and I'm standing in this truth, and that's not okay. Or, you know, that wasn't, you know, that's not who we were, or that's who we are. And that's where we need to go back to, you know, depending on what it is.
You know, when we look at the pioneers, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, what it does is it gives me a greater sense of freedom, because we get to see what all they had to go through for us to be able to do what we do today. You know, like if you look at the Fox family, where they had all these people show up, you know, wanting to cause problems for them, but they stood their ground. And you know, the same thing with him, you know, like you said, he may have had some restraining orders, but you know, what they went through and the obstacles that they had to deal with, the Fox sisters having to be, you know, stripped down, you know, all the stuff that they went through gives me a greater sense of appreciation and a greater sense of freedom for us to be able to be mediums today. Mm-hmm. And to be able to do it freely without such huge obstacles. I'm not going to say there's none, but without such huge obstacles.
Yeah. Well, and really, I mean, you're looking at, even then, people were still getting arrested for mm-hmm. doing mediumship. I mean, I think, who was the last medium? Helen Duncan. I think she was the last one. No, she was, I think, a German or English medium. Like, she was over the pond. But I mean, she was arrested in like 1950 or something like that for doing mediumship. You know, so yeah, and to sit there and be so, like I said, that it's so interesting now. Like, they go and they Whitewater has this history of being, you know, haunted, and of course, you know, the Morris Pratt plays into all of that too. But it's quite amazing to see how, you know, the correspondence that was happening back then, and how welcome. I mean, really, because if you can imagine, and this is where I struggle, you know, but can you imagine now, like, I have a church I go to that's a spiritualist church, but it's in Milwaukee and it's been there since like 1920. But can you imagine being the first of something? Like the first, and something so outside of the box, you know, in this little rural town, you know, like surrounded by farms. And it's not like he built something little, you know, like this isn't just like a little cottage. This is, look at that monstrosity. Phew, right downtown of this, like, look at the background. You can see like a little barn, you know, look how big that thing is compared to the barn, you know. So can you imagine what people had to think?
And that barn is not just a one-story barn.
Right.
And look at it compared to the house. And, you know, that's taking a big risk there. I mean, he could have built this huge thing and it could have just been empty all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's and I don't know, I just think like what an amazing man to do that, and to really stick true to his truth. I mean, he could have easily said, yeah, well, here's $100 for the cause, like
Let
Which
somebody
still would have been a lot of money back then.
right, right. But instead he leaves, he really followed through, and that message came through spirit.
Because
Through spirit.
I think he put 30,000 into that, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, for that time, but he was a good businessman, a good farmer. Do you know, a good, like I said, he didn't really farm. He was smart. He just bought up all the land and then leased the land to the farmers, but 30,000 was a lot to invest in that time too. So
Yeah, see, you would think that he would have built a home and built a bunch of other buildings that, if it didn't take off, could have been used as barns and, rented them out or whatever. But no, he knew and he went for it. And I love that about him too, because he knew what he was trying to do and he was going for it.
Hey, knock it off.
yeah. And I put a post every now and then on Facebook looking for anybody who either, listened to grandma's stories about growing up in Whitewater, because I mean, the mediums that came through that little town in Wisconsin were, I mean, the ones that we're studying today, the ones that we put on pedestals today, these are the mediums that really just paved the way for us to be who we are now. They were all in and out of that building, doing demonstrations and lectures, and to time travel or something, I just want to listen to somebody tell all the stories of, the full lecture halls of just, and debate, good, healthy debate, except for a few places he got.
What would be really interesting? How they say, oh, I wish, if those walls could talk. Could you just imagine if those steps could talk? The different mediums that walked up those steps for the first time, and, were they excited? What were they feeling? What?
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be every day, I love when we have our conversations. I love when I can converse anytime with anybody about mediumship or the history of spiritualism or any of that. But to sit and live and breathe it like 7 days a week, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. I kind of do. I'm lucky because I'm the administrator.
kind of do.
I know, but now I want to live in that building.
You can't, it's not there. Tammy?
Stacy, do you ever sit with like documents and things like that and pick up psychometry readings?
So interesting enough that you say that, Tammy. It is true. I do a lot. And, I'm in the office at the current building, and I invite anyone ever, if they're ever in the Milwaukee area and would like a tour of the building, to give me a call. We have probably one of the most, compared to the Marion Skidmore Library in Lilydale, we probably have one of the largest spiritualist libraries in the world. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of books we have and pamphlets. But yeah, and also, we've had presidents, like our current MPI president is the Reverend June Kilmer, and she is from California. And what I find fascinating, her father, the Reverend Ernst Schoenfeld, was also the president of MPI in the 60s.
Wow.
And he was from Chicago. That's where their family originally was from. And we have had a huge line of female presidents for the past, at least 3-4 decades have been women presidents. But I'll sit in that office and I will sit by the original charter and I'll look at it, or I will be typing up a letter or making, getting a new student enrolled, and I feel the presence of these past presidents. And I feel like I walk in and we have a wall of presidents with all their pictures from Moses Hall until the current. And I'm always like, good morning or goodbye, or, I'm always talking to them because I do feel their presence, in the building and around the building, knowing. And I really hope that Morris Pratt is just beaming, that his dedication to spiritualism is still thriving all these years later. And I hope he is. But yeah, we have so many cool things at MPI. I'm telling you, people, you got to come visit. There's slates. There's we have a few Bang sisters and Campbell brothers, precipitated art portraits. There's just a lot of fantastic items that you just can't help but sit in front of or open or hold and just get like, oh.
I'd want to hold everything and touch the building and just, go from room to room, because I pick up a lot that way. And it would be interesting to see how that would turn out.
Oh, I would love it. So come on over, Tammy.
Next time I'm in Milwaukee.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Get down on the floor and crawl like a worm and get all the energy and feel everything.
For sure.
Feel everything, then get up and touch everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our fingerprints will be all over everything. We'll have to go through and polish all the picture frames.
Right. Yeah, I will say I'm a little bit of a beast of burden, though, because there's like 3 cabinets. You can't open or touch any of them. You can only look with your eyes. I say, touch with your eyes.
Well, you can touch the outside of the cabinet, right?
There you go.
So,
yeah.
I'm good.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Does anybody else have anything that they would like to ask or say or add to? No? Well, I think we pretty well covered him.
I do. I feel like we did a good job.
And, I really love when we do these because, like I said, for me, it gives me an added sense of freedom because, remember, there was a time when people got killed for doing what we do. And this is a natural gift. It's just, you have to learn how to tap into it, but it's a natural gift, and people were being killed just because of a gift that everybody's given. And for us to have the freedoms we have today means so much. We don't have to live in fear. And it's because of these people that we have this ability. It's because there were people that were willing to stand up and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and these are my beliefs, that we're able to do that today. And I feel that a lot of credit goes to the Fox family for that. A whole lot. Because that took a lot of something I can't say on here.
Well, in a lot of states, you still have to have the sign that says that, readings are done only for entertainment purposes. And it'll be a great day when that doesn't have to be anymore, because I don't believe it's just for entertainment.
I agree 100%. I absolutely agree with that. But, I think that when we do these, it's not only enjoyable to us, but I think that it just might, hopefully, give other mediums or other spiritualists out there, because not all spiritualists are mediums.
Not all mediums are spiritualists either.
Right. And I just hope that it gives other spiritualists, mediums, healers, the sense of freedom and thankfulness that we can do and be who we are today.
Absolutely. And just education, you know, for the fact that, you know, we aren't new age. Mediumship isn't new age. It's been around for a long time. And, you know, and to know the history behind it, because when you start layering on this history and this understanding of this movement, which, you know, eventually turned to the science, philosophy, and religion of, but when you understand that history, it takes away all of the, that woohoo stuff.
Legitimate, you know what I mean.
Yeah, legitimize it.
That thing there does that.
Yeah, it does. It does. And we need to honor, because we're paving the way. Do you know what I mean? We're the next group of pavers. And when, you know, when we honor the past, it puts it in perspective for us too, to keep paving. And keep, like Tammy said, you know, hopefully someday we can get to that point where all states that, you know, it's actually just a religious practice or spiritual practice, depending on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I encourage spiritualists, mediums, and healers, even if you think you're not interested in the education, you know, come in, because you might then realize how freeing it is and how much gratitude we have for, you know, to give to these people, for us to have these abilities, you know, whether you're Reiki, whether you're psychic, whether you're a medium, whether you're a spiritualist. I mean, all these, there's a whole bunch of categories, but whatever it is, we have a lot of gratitude that we should be giving these people for, you know, paving the road. So we don't have to walk down a dirty, you know, rocky road. We have it pretty smooth. And, you know, Stacy said, New Age is, I guess it's not New Age. I guess it's old age, Stacy.
You know, I will too just put a final plug in to just check out morrispratt.org, the website. It does break down our 30 lesson course on what things that you could learn, and, you know, has a lot of information. We are in the process of updating, and we're hoping to have at the campus, we're hoping to actually start having in-person classes once COVID lifts and everything, and doing some, you know, kind of going back to the roots, you know, having some lectures and, you know, having some seances and, you know, just kind of going back to the roots of Morris Pratt. But definitely he's a legend in my mind. I have, like I said, I have pictures of like 7 pioneers over here that are just like, they're just near and dear to my heart. And he's one of them. He's just an inspiration.
Do you guys have a bookstore?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because what I would like to, the last plug I would like to put in is, you know, if you don't want to take classes there and you want to go to one of us or one of whoever out there, that's fine. But I really encourage you to check out the bookstores at MPI as well as at NSAC.
Yeah.
Are they online?
What's that?
Are they online?
The bookstores are not online yet. I know if you email both of us, we will email you. We can email you a
Like a
PDF
directory.
catalog.
Okay.
But, you know, even, and I'm going to say this about MPI, you're going to need to take classes from Randi or other. MPI gives you the foundation of what happens in mediumship. It talks about how natural law plays into mediumship. It talks about how ectoplasm is formed. It talks about vibrational rate of energy, but it does not make you a medium. It does not make you a healer. That's where you have to put it into work through classes, through teachers. I always think that the course at MPI, like I said, lays the foundation of what spiritualism is, but it does not make people mediums. You have to do your part in that, you know. You have to do your part. You have to work.
And it's not just taking courses with Randi, it's taking courses maybe with Stacy or maybe with Tammy or whoever's
Okay.
personality resonates with you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not right for everybody.
Well, you're right for me.
Oh, you're right for me too, baby. No. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's you have to go with whoever you feel comfortable and safe and relaxed with. You can't just, well, I mean, people do, but I don't recommend that you have a teacher where it feels forced or it feels unnatural or uncomfortable.
Or they
Correct.
tell you that the only way is their way.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's like the
that-
death blow, isn't it? Like
Yes,
that,
it
I just
is.
hate when I hear that because
Yes.
Or
Mm,
that you should only have one teacher and that's them.
yeah,
You should have
Exactly.
you should have a multitude of teachers.
Right.
yeah,
And we should all be forever students.
We are. It's not
We
should
are.
be. We are.
Right.
Because you can never master everything in a lifetime.
No.
You just can't.
no.
And you know, while we're spiritual beings, we're still having human experience. And that can be messy.
It can be really good though with gummy bears. I'm just saying.
I think she's talking to you, Jack. So with that, I think we've pretty well covered everything.
I think I know
And
what's going to be on Stacy's Christmas list.
right. And I would like to thank you all for joining us tonight, whether you're in person or whether you're watching, you know, YouTube. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, please don't forget to subscribe so that you're made aware of new content as it comes out. The third Monday of every month is our Spiritual Pioneer Review. And don't forget that next week
Special edition.
is the Blue Island. And it's going to be fascinating. So whether you know somebody that is spiritual or not, you guys may want to come in. And we look forward to seeing all of you. And in the meantime, have an amazing week. And I'm going to say goodnight, and I think everybody else is too.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Stacy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Stacy, thank you again.
Oh, absolutely. Always a good
Thank
time.
you. Thank you for the time that you put in. We really appreciate it.
No worries.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.